Okay, so that worked. I'm really sorry if you just disappeared for like 8 minutes. So I put up a trailer showing the YouTube launches that I'm going to be using for the Tracy Island, and it got blocked for copyright, so they blocked my stream and took it down. So I'm like, oh, okay. They just said your stream is ineligible and it stopped. Bit of weird. So this is like, I'm finally here. I'm really, really sorry about this. It's just the way YouTube sometimes works. It doesn't like copyright material. I didn't think they would take it down for showing a Thunderbirds clip, but apparently they do. So now I've got to talk to you all about what I'm doing without actually being able to show it you. I've got some slides and those pictures probably aren't copyrighted, so I'll do that instead. But half of what I was going to talk about is just like, well, okay, we won't do it that way. Anyway, I hope everyone found their way from the last stream. I will delete it out at the end so people can't get confused. But yeah, I might just take the front off this one because, wow. And so, thank you to everyone who turned up. Thank you to everyone who made it to the second stream. And for those who are saying I can whistle Digger, the theme tune, you do not want me doing anything musical. So I see Digger made it over. Timber, hopefully Norm's on there as well. Norm, Timber and Digger are my moderators. So thank you very much. Thank you all of you for, you know, the hard work that you do in supporting everything. So excellent. I'm here and there's going to be a lot on my face so that we don't go through Thunderbird's copyright stuff. So yes. And Andrew Stephen says, YouTube told me it wasn't available in the UK. That's because I showed something that is copyrighted in the UK, but it's obviously not so much of a problem in the rest of the world. But it just said it's been stopped. So I was like, oh, interesting. First time I've ever had that, because I don't normally use copyrighted material. So next time I'll choose a different trailer. Whew, this is going to be a fun one, I can tell. Right, well with that, let's get going. We're talking Thunderbirds, hopefully without any issues this time. I'm sure the name isn't copyrighted. And this is one of the problems with doing anything on YouTube that belongs to a universe. And there's definitely a period where you can show a clip and it's like a few seconds or a small part of the screen. But if you put it on for the full amount, I didn't even have the sound on. It was literally just Thunderbird 4, I think, as far as I got, and loading, and then it stopped it. So it's an interesting one when you come to do things that are heavily copyrighted. And I think it's one reason, you know, people really enjoy seeing the models of them, but a lot of people don't like to model things that are copyrighted because of problems they get like this. So anyway, some of you, I know because you've told me, built Tracy Island when it was on Blue Peter in the 90s. And I have to admit, I was at university in the 90s and I wasn't building anything from Blue. I didn't even watch Blue Peter. I watched it in the sort of late 70s, 80s. So definitely not something I've ever built before. I've never done a Tracy Island. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to do because it's hard work trying to work out. It's just hard work to work out what to do because it's going to be really big if I'm not careful. But anyway, thanks guys for showing up. So I think most people I saw before have made it on. I haven't seen Norm yet, so hopefully he finds it across, but he's got the Super Bowl to go to. So thank you if you did make it before Super Bowl and you're not on a Super Bowl trip. Timber, I wondered how you had the rights to show that. Normally you can get away with showing small amounts of stuff, but anyway. So everybody who's saying, like Phil Wright, it was not available in your country is because obviously the UK has it blocked. It's like people are always saying to me, how can I watch Hornby Model World in the US? And the answer is, I don't know, because I'm in the UK. And every time I try and look at YouTube, I can only see stuff that's available in the UK. I can't tell you what's available in the US because I'm not in the US and I don't have a VPN. So there we go. So anyway, Thunderbirds weren't go in response to Snowtato XL. And Sodar Danderman says he built it and had the VHS tape of the Blue Peter build when released the video. Wow, that's impressive. So Norm says he's back. Thanks, Norm. I did thank you about 3 minutes ago for being a moderator, so thank you while you're here. It took me about 8 minutes to get I couldn't get it to show the new stream on my software. So it wasn't showing the new one available. So I renamed it and then it showed it as available because it had the same name. And yeah, so Sodo Dandyman, I bet you get that a lot. But anyway, we're here now. So thank you for everybody who has made it. Timber says VPN is a wonderful thing. I have no real desire to, I can normally get hold of everything I want. So yeah. So what am I doing? Well, last year, 3 or 4 months ago now, I did a vote and said, oh, I could do this HO Craftsman kit that will be really fine scale, nice modelling. Or I can do Thunderbirds Tracy Island. And everybody, 70% voted for Thunderbirds Tracy Island. So then I thought, oh, I should have thought about this a bit more. And I got out Blender and I had some boxes of Thunderbirds. So I bought some more boxes of Thunderbirds. I have a lot of Thunderbirds kits just over here, just like hundreds of them. Actually, if I did, can you see my hand? Over here? There, they're just there. Well, that's half the boxes. And it's been fascinating. So I did some early work when everyone suggested it last year. And since then, I haven't really thought about it too much because I wanted the first stream to be a design stream and actually to talk about some of the ideas with you guys before I did anything. I didn't want to lock it down too much, so I'd had a chance to talk to people. So it is going to be really fascinating, and I'm really interested in what people would like to see on a Tracy Island build. So let's just talk about all the elements, and I'm going to try the photo slideshow. Haha! Hopefully this will work because it's not video. It's just photos. I don't think copyright on photos is quite such a thing for YouTube. So anyway, these are some photos. It hasn't yet come up with a you've been blocked. These are some photos in, I'm going to leave them going in the background, of Tracy Island and just some of the hangars and things like that. And we'll talk in more detail about how I'm going to represent it. Let's have a quick look at chat to see. Some of you do remember Blue Peter in the 90s and some of you are my age and were at university instead. So yeah. James Polton says, if you're interested, Paul Harrison on YouTube has built some amazing Thunderbird vehicle replicas. There's some great modelling for Thunderbirds out there. So Langton Road, he built it as well, and we'll dig out the picture, pipe cleaners and all. That's very impressive. So Valleys 56XX has the VPN extension on Chrome, which can be useful. So yeah, obviously a lot of people do use it. So I'll have to make my, Andrew Stevenson says, I'll have to make my Tracy Island and Thunderbirds a different colour or not very good to avoid YouTube's copyright box. I don't think it's a problem as long as you don't use video. Like, I don't think this slideshow that's been running for a few minutes will take it down because it's not video. But, you know, it's just a pain. Anyway, if you want to look, all of the Thunderbird launches are up on the ITV channel. So just Google Thunderbird launches and you can go look at what I was going to show you. But at least it went on the trailer a few minutes in rather than in the middle of the stream, which would have got me halfway through. So there we go. So people remembering, definitely a lot of people remembering the Chaos Blue Peter course, says Cat Paul, with their Tracy Island build. Dean Halls, Kathy, I'm not happy that you haven't got to show it. However, I'm pleased so far as my grandson is now about to build Tracy Island on a T-Track module. Oh, brilliant. That sounds fun. Timber, fluffy bear suit. Is it still cold and drafty in my house? It's not as cold and drafty, but it's my one day off where I don't wear a sweatshirt and work. So it is my only day I have off in the week where I can wear something that isn't a working sweatshirt that's going to get covered in paint and glue. So this is my sort of, I feel fluffy moment. Soda Dandyman, I still have the sets from Matchbox in 1992 and have some original 60s Thunderbird toys. So Dean's saying perhaps we have a chance now to beat you to it. You probably will, and I'll explain why in a minute about what's happening with where I am with work and things like that. So Norm has asked a very good question. What scale am I modelling in? Well, this is one of the problems that I need to discuss. All of the kits, and I want to use the kits because there are 3 hanger kits I have. Thunderbird 3, Thunderbird 1 and Thunderbird 2. Why don't I just go? Thunderbird 1, 2 and 3. I've got the hanger bays for them already modelled in a kit. So it makes perfect sense not to model them again from scratch when I can just build them. So yeah, that's really cool. So 1 to 350 is the short answer to that question. I think it's on the side somewhere. But 1 to 350, yeah. And you can buy some of them in other scales. So you can only buy certain items in certain scales. And if I do 5 as a separate diorama, which I'll talk about, then that's in a it says multiple scales. So I suspect the Thunderbird 3 is a different scale because it's smaller, I think, to fit it in, but I'll have to see. So Dodgy Diorama says tilting trees. I wasn't sure what to do for the trees. I was just debating how to make them. And I was on WWS stand, War World Scenics, at Worley, and they had some palms. And I was like, oh, you've got palms. He gave them to me. So I have my palm trees ready for the tilting trees. And they're about the right scale, I think. So that should be really cool. So the trees are ready. Everything else isn't. So Frank Words, hi Kathy, have you seen the Adam Savage's tested vid on practical model of Tracy Island with Weta Workshop build for the new Thunderbirds TV show? I have, and I rewatched all of Thunderbirds at Go for this and all of Thunderbirds. I've got to say, I do prefer the designs for some of the stuff on Thunderbirds on Go, and I think it's because Weta Workshop did it, and it's been slightly modernised, so they've got the originals, and then they've got the new stuff. So for example, Thunderbird 2, if you look at it in the original, it's practically impossible because it hits the containers as it comes down if it was to continue on, and they was cut. In Thunderbird 2, they bend the end of the arms up, the wings up, and put them down. But because they bend them up, they don't need the palm trees to tilt. So it's mixed on both. So Alex Dent, I'm a new subscriber and joined your Discord server. Well, Alex, I'll look you up after, but welcome. The Discord server link went up at the top of chat if you want to look. And actually, I'm on top chat, not live chat. So let me just go look at live chat, see if it's any difference. Ratty Rex, is there any such thing as too big when it comes to Tracy Island? Collapsing palm trees, moving swimming pool, cutaway island, showing the hangar. Yeah, I've actually got to fit it on a workbench and in my house. And I think this is going to be the first diorama I ever build to sell, because it's going to be too big for me to keep. Realistically, I just won't be able to keep it at this size. It's just massive. On the other hand, given the price of just the kits alone that will go into it, it's going to be an expensive model to sell. So I need to weigh that up, what I do with it, but still. Digger says he was too old for the Blue Peter version, but he remembers the hoo-ha about it. I vaguely do. I was at uni. I think when it was out, I can't remember, I don't know when in the 90s it was out, but I was in uni for the first half of the 90s-ish. And I got to say, I don't remember it at all. But I think when you're in your 20s, you're not really paying attention to paper mache in the same way. So, Stacey Yorma says, I need a lemon squeezer for the T1 launch bay. It's kind of infamous that there's just a lemon squeezer stuck on the side. It's in the model on the launch bay that I have, so I can do that. So Nick says some of us, I think he means him, had finished poly in the 80s. Well, I was still at school in the 80s, thankfully, so I'm not that old. But I am getting to a rather significant milestone next month, so let's not talk about it. Hi Vobert Backing, welcome. And then Halko Mahuli, I did watch Thunderbird in the 90s, maybe my brother were big fans. If you're in the UK, you can actually stream it for free on ITVX if you can work out how to get that onto your TV. I ended up buying the DVDs because it was just simpler. But actually you can get it on ITV Hub, has become ITVX. So in the UK you can watch it for free still. And it's actually on in the morning, I think it's on live on ITV. So you can still watch it in the UK for free. You don't actually need to pay for it. Everybody else, I don't know, I guess you'll need VPNs or whatever it is you do. Or you can buy the DVDs, which is what I did. They weren't expensive. So Simon Moss asked, will this build include any vehicles? Yes, I do have a lot of boxes of vehicles, so there will definitely be some vehicles in there. So Dizzy Devil says, I live in the US and many times I don't get a notification of your live stream and you've gotten halfway through and I missed most of it. I'd be happy to catch this one. Well, the notification you got was probably the wrong one because it was the old live stream that got copyright banned. So excellent. That was a good one. You've made it though. That's the important thing. Jaw21, don't worry if you can't or too much trouble, but is there any chance you could swap yourself to the left and the logo to the right and watching on TV and chat is covering your face? Yeah, I can do that. Oops. I can easily do that. In fact, I think we've had that up for a while, so we could just go back to me for a bit because it's all about me. But I'm over here and the camera's up there and this is over here, so I end up thinking I don't actually look at the camera that much. RTC, is there any part of the roundhouse behind you? It is, actually. Good spot. That is the legs to the roundhouse up there. So well spotted. This is like my house at the moment. This is boxes. Boxes of boxes. This is actually boxes of dioramas I had to pull out of the diorama storage room because they were putting a steel in it. And then they put dust in it. And then they had to do the doors in it. And every room upstairs has had replastering in some part of it and a concrete pad. One room had a giant steel down the side of it. Every single room in my house has got boxes in it. The rooms that don't have boxes, I mean even my kitchen, my lounge, the dining room. I took my Xbox round to Mum's so I could play it over Christmas. So actually this afternoon I was round at Mum's playing Halo. I'm on a Halo rerun. Oh, it's just a nightmare. Everything is gritty with dust. All the doors had to be replaced because there have to be fire doors if you go up to an extra level. So I've got fire doors through the house now and they had to reciprocating saw off the frames, otherwise they'd have had to replaster every room. And I was like, I'm not having my lounge and dining room done as well. So between it all, it has been a bit of a nightmare. But I will do all that in a future video. So where do we got to? Some of them. So, okay. Is that part of the roundhouse? Yes, right. Hey, wait, is this based on a movie? I believe there is a Thunderbirds movie called Thunderbirds Or Go, but it's a series. It's the Thunderbird series, which I would show you, but it got copyright banned. So yeah, Nick, there will definitely be the folding palms. So Stephen, believe it or not, but some people have built radio-controlled flying models of the Thunderbird too. I can't believe that can fly. It's like a bumblebee. It defies physics. So Nick Meredith suggests to fit it all in, I do variable scale with force perspective larger in the foreground. The trouble is, most of everything I have is 1:350 and has to fit through itself. So Andrew says, thought your 3D printed palm trees were going to be for this. If you haven't seen it, my last video was on making 3D printed palm trees. They're too big, is the truth, and I already had the WWS ones before I even printed those, and they're much, much smaller. So I could have done them, but as I have them, I'll probably just thank WWS personally and do those. Soda. After doing what you're planning, can I suggest a follow-up project to do the Blue Peter exactly Anthea did with what's available today if things are not available anymore? I don't really want to do I like realistic design, and theirs was very a pastiche. So I'm going to be basing mine on the slideshow that was up earlier with actual cutaway diagrams. But I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Phil says, with regards to the mechanism for the folding trees, Megapoints do a servo controller that has a semaphore signal mode that has a random bounce feature which will look great when the trees drop. Brilliant. I need to look at that because I've got some servos, but I haven't decided what to control them with. I mean, I was just going to put an Arduino on them and use a bouncing Arduino because you can do bounce with those, I think. So, and I've got the Arduino already. So Soda, I'm just going to call you Soda. Weta have made new sets in model form for CGI characters to interact with, but 1000% prefer the puppet series and the models. It's fascinating. I prefer the people in the new series. Thunderbirds Or Go, the people are nice. Thunderbirds, when you look at it with a modern lens and you look back at them, some of them are quite rude and abrasive, and they are slightly sexist, and they aren't. I look at them and I'm just like, wow, if you walked up to me, Scott Tracy, and you were like that, I'd just be like, I don't care about you helping, just get lost, you're so rude. Because he is really abrasively rude. So it's funny when you watch it back with a modern lens to something that was really acceptable in the 60s. I like Thunderbirds A Go better, actually, as a series. I do prefer it. I just think the people are nicer in it. I like the characterisation more. So anyway, moving on from that confession. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. You can see it's on YouTube. Adam Savage went round it. There's apparently an exhibition because it only finished in 2020 and it's at Weta, and the models are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Anthony Halls, I sculpted and produced a bust of Jerry Anderson and his son Jamie approved it and loved it. Also sculpted scale versions of Super Marination figures and vehicles for Robert Harrop. Brilliant. Well, that sounds really good. So Norm thinks 1 to 350 will be a good scale. Yeah, I think Thunderbird 2 is about this big in it. I've actually seen them before I decided to do this by about a few weeks, at Scale Model World, so I've seen them built up. So Soda says, I'm 38 on the 2nd of March, so 38 years of being a Thunderbird fan and Thomas lol. It's my dad's birthday, so good date. And so young. Harko Mahuli, Kathy, sadly I'm from Finland, no DVD streams or anything here for Thunderbirds or Thunderbirds or Go. So I watched them all on ITV. I actually watched them on Prime or Sky, and they came off midway through and went into ITV HubX. So they were dragging them back. But the DVDs I got off Amazon. I just bought them off Amazon. So I don't know if you can do that. Norm, he was a supercar baby and was already in my career during Thunderbirds. 1964, I think it came out, something like that. So Shankly 1. Hello from California, I just bought your scenery book. Oh, thank you. For those of you who don't know, I wrote a scenery book. It's called Modelling or Building Realistic Model Railroad Scenery. I can't remember the name of the book. Building Realistic Model Railroad Scenery. It's not just for railroads. There's loads of stuff in there that covers everything. So, bit of a plug for my book. I could do with the royalties coming in. And then Ghostbusters Quick Response Team. Been enjoying following your builds. Tracy Island sounds like a fun, involved project. Yeah, and that's what I need to talk about. So I'll just do a bit more in chat and then I'll start talking about the actual project. Hornby are producing a Scale Electric Fab 1 this year, if anyone's interested. Oh, I don't do Scale Electrics, but yeah. So Andrew says, sounds like you're converting your house to launch TB1, adding steels and concrete pads. Yeah. I wish I had a spaceship that launched from here, a bit like Wallace and Gromit out the back. So Digger says, Norm, were you Joe 90? Bless. So Stephen says it's basically an aircraft hangar with wings. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but yeah. I haven't seen the live action Thunderbirds movie. I was going to, and we just ran out of oomph on Thunderbirds, having watched them all. So yeah, there were 2 films. Thunderbirds was a live action film in 2004, which didn't do as well as they expected. And then it was Thunderbirds Are Go was the same models in 1966. So there's been the 2. And Thunderbirds Are Go, they're all on the ITV Hub if you can get onto that. Timber says Bounce is easy to program on Arduino. I thought it was. Thanks, Timber. Ghostbusters. Yes, a lot of TV from long, long ago does not age well. I daren't rewatch my 2 favourites as a child. Blake 7, absolutely adored that, and some of the early Doctor Who's. Because I read the books, and the books are fine, but when you see them, you're like, that was an amazing alien when I was a child, but now I just see it as green painted bubble wrap with the bubbles on the outside to look like Alien and then wrapped around Tom Baker's arm. Just doesn't look the same. But Blake 7, I wish they'd remake that. That was excellent. So yeah, David, was fun to do a bit of model making on the Weta Thunderbirds. Yeah, I mean, that's really cool, the Weta Thunderbirds. I can't rave enough about, they couldn't even get Tracy Island to sink. They had to tie it down with steel and lead and all sorts because they had so much foam it just floated. It's just funny. So Soda, random pointless fact, my real world surname is Hornby. Yes, I'm related to Frank before anyone asks. Oh, brilliant. Well, you can get away with the name then, I guess, in there. So, and he sat here watching, making his own scenery flocks. That's brilliant. That's really, really good. And I'm assuming you're a man because you say dander man. Stephen, what do you think about Thunderbird 1 was unnecessary? Scott's mobile control did nothing you couldn't do with a mobile phone. In the 60s, that's true, but I don't know why he couldn't just be politer about it. There we go. Tim, surely the roof on your new modelling room opens up for launch. I do have a Velux that opens, and I do have windows, but not, and the Velux is in the roof. So the 1:144 scale Thunderbird 2 was $1,800, but included every pod. Wow. So Tony says, please don't watch Blake 7 again, Kathy. I did, and it ruined many childhood memories. Yeah, I daren't. And Martin's with me. Blake 7 was awesome. Avon was just such a great character. So anyway, let's talk Thunderbirds Tracy Island. So I've had a lot of ideas about the design of this, and I wanted to run them past you guys and put a couple of caveats in as well. So when I said I was going to do this, I was expecting to have a full-time job. And for those of you who don't follow my live stream very often, or you're kind of first time watching it, I have been a content creator since the start of lockdown, which was just an incidental coincidence. And a lot of my projects that I planned at the beginning died a lockdown death. So I had a few advertising things lined up and stuff like that, and it all disappeared. So I ended up doing a lot of YouTube, writing a book, neither of which earn you any money. Don't believe it. At my level of YouTube, you do not earn enough money to live on. I've got a Patreon, which again doesn't earn huge amounts. And I expected last September, people got in touch with me who I'd been speaking to 3 years earlier about doing a tourist attraction in London as the creative director. And it's a miniature world tourist attraction like Miniature Wonderland. And I was very exciting. And they were nearly funded at Christmas 2 years ago. It didn't happen. And then they were going through funding. And in July, they had a funder lined up. And then the signing the contract was supposed to be end of July. Then it was supposed to be end of August. Then it was supposed to be end of September. Then it was supposed to be end of October. And at the end of November, he signed a contract. The funder signed a contract. And he was supposed to transfer the cash within 48 hours. And he didn't transfer it in November. He didn't transfer it in December. And in January, they kicked him to the curb. And they're now looking for funding again. At which point I went, look, I appreciate the weekly updates, but I can't spend my life waiting for you to get funding for an amazing new job. So I'm still back with YouTube, my book, royalties, and Patreon being my only real sources of income. But in that time, I took my eye off the business ball quite a bit. I had planned to do maybe more books. I often say, people say everybody has one book in them. That's because when they've written one book, they don't want to write a second. Writing a book is hard and actually doesn't earn back the money for your effort that you put into it. I have not, in my first year's royalties, come anywhere close to the time it took me to put in. And obviously royalties go down after the first year because most people buy a book in its first year and its first print. Now I expect, this is Colmback's Scenery Bible, I do expect it to stay in print for a while, so it's a long burn. So anyway, I now need to earn some proper money. The savings are running out and I do need to be earning some money. So I'm looking to design a Kickstarter for, and I'll talk more about this at the end. So I'm now only modelling in the afternoons. I've also been doing a complete Star Wars rewatch chronologically from the start and haven't really been modelling in the evening. I did the Roundhouse before Christmas, modelling in the evening. But I was trying to have a bit of a rest because I literally, otherwise, my working week looks like I start work at 8, I finish at 5 and watch Pointless, I log back on at 7 and I work till 9:10. Repeat 6 days a week. That's my working life. And I don't earn any money doing that. Fine. I enjoy it, but I need to carve within that a different balance to actually earn some money in it. So now in the morning, I'm designing 3D prints and I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter for terrain. Why terrain, you ask? Why not scale models? Well, there's a big market for terrain. There is not a big market for scale models out of your imagination. Scale models have to be scaled perfectly, they have to be done perfectly, they have to be rivet proof. And I don't want to be rivet counted over what I design. I want to be able to use my imagination. So that means I err towards the sci-fi side of things because quite frankly, nobody can tell me my landing pad isn't right. If it doesn't look good, I just go, they've got repulsor boobars. Oh, and they've got grabs this, that and the others. Oh, it's got a space elevator that connects it. I can always find a way round and an excuse. And I have loads of, I said I'm chronologically watching Star Wars. I'm not joking. That's 9 movies and about 9 TV shows. So, and I'm watching them all. And some of those TV shows are like 7, 8 seasons. So there's a lot of TV watching in that. And happily, I'm, getting loads of landing pad ideas. I play Halo, play Titanfall, play Mass Effect, loads of landing pad ideas. So I'm going to do a small Kickstarter, but I'm having to spend the mornings designing. So all of my 3D print design time is currently going into something that's actually going to make me money. And one of the things that I've been putting off thinking about is what Thunderbirds needs, because it's another design project that may be 3D printed. And that's why I bought the kits in the end, because I should be able to build them with a lot less designing in there. But I still have to design around them the buildings, because there isn't a kit for the roundhouse, there isn't a kit for Tracy Villa, and there isn't a kit for the cliff house, which are the very 3 minimum that I need to do. So let's just put the slideshow up again. And interesting fact, I put this up. This is the roundhouse. It's got 1 story when they first did it. This is a nearly 300-foot rocket. So when they did the movie Thunderbirds Are Going in 1966, they put a 2nd story in, as you can see here, and made the steps a bit smaller, because they realised that their 300-foot rocket was actually only about 10 foot tall. Otherwise, or maybe 50 foot tall when they had it in scale next to the roundhouse. Just goes to show nobody thinks about it. Another interesting fact, did you know that the original X-Wings from Star Wars are too small for a figure to fit in? They did the cockpit separately and the X-Wing model separately, and when you combine them, you can't actually put a scale figure inside an X-Wing. I thought that was interesting. So if we look here, we can see these are Tracy Island cutaways. And what I'm proposing to do for Tracy Island is a cutaway model. And there's a few to choose from. I'm just going to let you ponder this every time. Look at the number of stairs. Look at the size of it. But you can see those bits up there. Yep, there. I've got 2 stories on mine. I've printed it, but I haven't put it together. And I think there's a few print errors, so I may have to do some reprints. But yeah, there we go. It looks a bit... I haven't done the chimney. I don't know why I didn't do the chimney. I never modelled the chimney. Interesting. I may have to just do that separately. But if you look here, you can see that this is actually a model. And it may even be a Thunderbird 2 one, Thunderbirds A Go one. This is Tracy Island. That's massive. Look at the size of that. There is no way I'm getting that in scale. But if you look at this, this is Tracy Villa, and you can see there's all sorts of wending ways back and forth. And the Thunderbird 1 hangar is in the villa. It's actually in the villa, and you can see the swimming pool there where it comes out of. The Thunderbird 3 one is up the coast a bit, and then you've got the conveyor belts that go under Thunderbird 2. There's a lot of moving parts. I would like to animate these. So I need to think about what I do and what's achievable for me in afternoons. Bearing in mind I've got other YouTube videos to do, and I've got a lot of, I'm trying not to take any sponsors at the moment, but I've still got a lot of things that I want to model. Bearing in mind, even when you look at it, there were physical impossibilities I mentioned earlier in the Thunderbird sequence. Thunderbird 2 physically can't come down because it would just smash onto the containers that go underneath it. So there's a lot of things you have to sort. I've actually got the same book twice, the cutaways. There's loads of cutaways diagrams. So I have diagrams for everything. And they've come up with all sorts of fancy ideas, like the conveyor belt that takes the containers under has mini conveyor belts that then widens them up when they choose which one, so that they can take them apart enough for the wings to come down and stuff like that. But to make this manageable, I think I'm going to model 3 or 4 elements, and we're going to see how it goes for time. And if people are getting bored, I might then move on and, just make them replaceable as I model them. So there's going to be the cutaway hangars, and I have the hangars already. I had to buy a Thunderbird 3 and launch bay from Japan because AIP, who are the people who've released the latest Thunderbird kits through Bachmann in the UK, they're a Japanese one and they've been around for donkey's years. And these AIP models, they've not in the UK yet released Thunderbird 3 and its launch bay. So I've got that. It's not a great kit, to be honest, but it has enough details. And I put all these into Blender and had a play, and they're quite big. But what I'm proposing to do is to model each one of them as a separate diorama and then magnet them together. So what I can do is I can build Thunderbird 2 first, say, and I can build the conveyor belt section and have Thunderbird 2 there and have it running. And then I can build another diorama that magnets on, because they have to fit on my workbench. They have to be workable on, and I have to be able to video them at the same time as working on them. So then I could do the hanger coming out. So what happens on that one is the door comes down and the palm trees do their thing. Can't show you, get copyright striked, you won't be able to see it. So you'll do your palm tree thing, and then you'll have the little, it comes to the end and launches. Now I might talk about the animation aspects of all of them as we go through the series later in the year, because there's some things I cannot get my head around how to do. I just can't get my head around how to do some of the things all in one go. So I need to think about how I address that. But if I make them plug and play, so I could take the cliff side off to get into the hangar bays, much like you see it on these slides that are going past. If I do it as a cutaway like that, you can see into the hangars, and I can model the bits I don't want to model, because I don't want to spend a lot of time designing it, because I'm already heavily involved in 3D designing all day. The bits I don't want to model, I just cover with hillside. Right, that's where I'm thinking. So let's go look at some chats and see what people say. Bounce, scenery flocks, thank you Digger for putting up links to my book, go buy one if you haven't, and to my Discord, go join it if you haven't. Right, so Ghostbusters is with me for a Blake 7 reboot. If you haven't seen Blake 7 as a child, don't watch it now because you won't understand it, but it was awesome. It was just absolutely awesome. So Giant Ball Monster says he watched the first couple of episodes of Blake 7 were quite good and serious, if he recalled, but he couldn't finish the series. I really remember the later ones because I remember watching them live, and Blake was out of it by the time I watched it. Blake 7 was a brilliant concept. This concept was brilliant. So there was a movie called Thunderbirds 6 with the original project. I haven't seen that one, I'm afraid. Tim Williams, I rewatch Blake 7 fairly often, full set and DVD. It still holds up for me if you look past the wobbly sets. You can tell in Doctor Who and Blake 7 that some things are literally made out of card with foil stuck on the outside. So Norm, I think, is talking about my job. That's a shame. Hopefully it still happens. I think it'll depend how far I get down the Kickstarter route. If I'm committed into a Kickstarter, which I'm hoping to do in early April, and it comes up then, I'll just go, look, I've committed to a Kickstarter, because you have to be around to deliver and do stuff. Alex, I'm sorry, you probably won't hear me say this, but thank you, and catch you later. Mark, High Scale Mark Models. Hi everyone. Flint, any more TV work? Not at the moment. If you haven't seen me, I was on Hornby Model World in January when they finally managed to show it. I'm sure they got copyright strike on something because they didn't go out first time either. And that was my Port de Norwich that's currently in my kitchen because of building works. Soda was, we're planning a large Wonderland style exhibit up here in North Wales, 30-minute drive from Dinorwic, in an abandoned factory very near Felinheli. Oh, that's interesting. That would be very interesting. So Mark, don't worry about being late. I rarely make a live stream on time, ever. And Matt, don't worry about being late. Better here than never. That's what I say. So Ghostbusters can't stand detail nitpickers. Yeah, it's just very difficult. You know, I understand when people want detail. It's just very hard to do. So Sodor, 3D model designs of Thomas engines advertised as representative of such a design would sell well. Having bonus, the model series didn't have rivets. I just got copyright struck on my first live stream because I showed Thunderbirds videos. There is no way you can do representative of Thomas and not get a copyright strike, you know, not get a cease and desist letter. It's just not really. I just don't want to even chance. All of the designs I'm ever going to sell are completely my own concept. Completely my own concept. So they will never have any copyright issues. I mean, I might say these are suitable if you want to play in a galaxy far, far away, but I won't say they're based on a galaxy far, far away. So cosmic scale models. Hi all, what scale are you going to work in? The Thunderbirds is 1 to 350. The Kickstarter, because I don't know which one you're asking for, is 28 to 35 mil. Sodor, Roundhouse is a library and lounge quiet area in the original series. Yeah, I think it was also visitors' quarters, according to the book. Not that I know much, but there's a book that tells you all about it. It's like a Haynes maintenance manual to Thunderbirds. I haven't seen the AI steampunk reinterpretation of Star Wars, but it sounds fun. But Norm has. I'll have to have a look for it. So the water in the pool will be boiling after the rocket started. I definitely believe that, yeah. The cross-section diagrams, I've got a whole book of them. You know, I've got them for every single item practically. So it's quite easy to do the modelling from them. So, giant boar monster, great idea. Reminds me there are lots of cutaway illustrations of Star Wars ships, vehicles, locations. The Hoth Rebel base is really huge underground. It's always one of the problems with modelling, say, underground railways or underground anything, is how do you show it? And I would like to have it that the foam can come out so that there's a front, and I'll probably do it in foam for lightness, but I might do a frame underneath that's magneted, that's maybe 3D print or something. So, yeah, Norm says separate modules, great idea. So, God bless the Japanese, they know how to appreciate and make models, etc. of British programmes, especially Thunderbird and Thomas Name 2. I haven't seen their Thomas models, but their Thunderbirds ones are quite old, so I'm not quite sure what the quality is. It's all, so Jaw 21, where did they get their fuel from? It's all atomic. Atomic, this is the 60s, everything was atomic. They all have atomic reactors. What is number 12 on the cutaway of Tracy Island Villa and Thunderbird 1 hangar? Oh, I've got the book upstairs on my bed. So Audie says sounds cool, that's good. I think number 12 is the seats version of Scott sit down on to go to T2. They do cross over each other. So that was Peter Jackson, thanks. Fun fact, Thunderbird 6 is, of all things, a commercially produced vintage Tiger Moth biplane which Alan has restored and is keen to fly. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. 12. Where's 12? Where's 12? I can't even see 12. We'll come back round again. I'll have to find 12 in a minute. Timbersurf. Right, Nick, are you looking at a Kickstarter with physical deliverables or STLs? Massive difference in work efforts. I'm doing STLs. I want to be able to, so I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I need to talk to My Mini Factory about using them for their pledge manager and then getting My Mini Factory shop. I'm not a fan of the My Mini Factory website, but it has a huge sales reach and they do the VAT for you. I cannot say how hard Europe have made VAT. Britain's no better, but I'm in Britain and I'm VAT registered, so for me it's not a problem. But if I sell one STL to Germany directly, I have to register for German VAT. And because we're now not in Europe, so this is like the rest of the world, I would have to register in another European country. I'm like, do you not want people to sell digital products to you? Because I won't sell anything direct to Europe. So I'm going through marketplaces. So I've got Gumroad, which isn't a great setup but works, and I've got I'm going to use My Mini Factory probably to do that. Andy Crawford, hi from Canada. Why not build as if a shelf layout, joining sections on quarters too large? So I thought about doing it, but one of the problems is they're actually all different shapes and lengths and widths and depths, so they won't fit in a shelf very well. And if they're going to be like that, I may as well just shove them all together and make a Tracy Island to go round them. That was kind of my thought. I originally thought of doing them like a comic strip and having each of the scenes from the launch sequence, well not all the scenes, but the scenes from the launch sequence as separate dioramas. And I will still do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 set of dioramas with the flying planes. So if you look at the bit that I didn't show on the trailer, where it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know, that bit, each of those has a vehicle, and I'm thinking of doing a set of 5 separate dioramas with each of the vehicles. I've got enough vehicles to do it, and they'll have a little magneted on cover that has the number on the front, and when you pull it off behind it is the diorama. And what I wanted to do with those was make the clouds move behind them so it looks like they're flying, or the water move for Thunderbird 4. But I haven't worked out how to get the clouds to move in the background yet. At the moment, I'm thinking maybe a spinning gobo on an LED light may just put some brightness on, but I need to sort of work on that. So if anyone's great ideas for a cheap way, because, you know, I could put a TV screen in the back of all of them, but I can't afford it. But a cheap way to do moving clouds on the back of a diorama, then please drop it in chat. So yeah, Andy, I think I did definitely go down the route of doing individual ones. And what I've seen, everyone's excited for Tracy Island. Other people do dioramas. People really want to see Tracy Island, and that really excites people. So I think I've decided I'm going to do them as individual dioramas and modules, but in a Tracy Island configuration. So Tim's up in North Wales a lot as well, Sodal, so that's why he wants to have a chat. There's a lot of videos on YouTube of people making their own series and using the music audio tracks. Yep, and they all be copyright. They won't be getting any money. Bear in mind, YouTube is my source of income. I can't afford to get a copyright strike, but actually this stopped streaming last time. They just said we've stopped your stream, which is a different message to we've stopped your monetization. Frank, in the picture of Thunderbird 2, the grey towers are made from Airfix girder bridge model, the bit where you load the track on underside showing. So one of the interesting things about Thunderbird 2, I've got the hanger already, but what I want to do, if you look at the Thunderbird 2 when it comes back round, can I even, normally I have a little bar that lets me flick through this, but I haven't. It's fascinating. Where did my bar go? Maybe if I click on that, there's the bar. So if we look here, not that one, not that one, this one, if I pause, really annoying. If I pause it, yeah, if I pause it, it doesn't show it. I don't understand this. So if you look at this one very quickly, because it will go past, there's conveyors here, there's the hangar, and then there's vehicle bay here. And I may well end up modelling those, because the vehicle bay is where if you want the containers to move, you have to do it. But bear in mind, that is a long diorama to do all of that. But you need it to get the containers to move. So that's a big decision to have on how long do I make that diorama, because that model isn't just filling the whole space. There's space to the left and right of it as well. So the one that I've got runs from maybe this wall to this wall, I think the diorama I've got, but it hasn't got any of these bits or these bits. So for now, all of this is going to be covered by mountain. All of that is going to be covered by mountain. All of these will be covered, sort of bits in between will be covered by mountain, so I don't have to model them. But I'll make it so that you can remove them if I do decide to model them later. And actually, let's just go to the Thunderbird hangar, Thunderbird 1 hangar. Where's 12? This is why I appear at my screen. I don't even see 12. Where was 12? I've done this before now where I go, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And I've looked at the number and it's something I really can't find it. 10, 13, 11. You'd think it'd be around there with those numbers, but it isn't. Anyway, let's just go redo that. Right. Right. Here we go. So yes, they used all sorts of girder bridge. It's really exciting, Frank. They did absolutely amazing things with just normal stuff, which is good. So stating the obvious, T3's launch sequence, sofa transport, looks like the Airfix Lomac railroad. Apparently it is, but in the scale I'm doing it in, it's like centimetre long or something. And I was hoping to animate a lot more until I realised how small everything is. It's so hard to animate really small things, like really small, practically invisible. So I was going to do full launch sequences on all of them, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to bother on T3 doing the up and down seats, the bit coming along and then it going up. It's just so small. I'll think about it as we get there, but it's just titchy. Right, so I'm leaving the miniature Wonderland in Wales aside for now, but Soda and Tim will obviously have a good chat about it. Stephen, question, if I scratch build sci-fi models to my own design, does it need a backstory to validate them? I have a backstory to mine. Actually, question for you all. So, Warhammer's a big war gaming, but I'm actually playing Star Wars Legion at the moment. And I was chatting to one of my friend's husbands who's really into Warhammer, and I said I'm going to be doing terrain, and he offered to, let me come and play and put their stuff on it and play test it effectively and be very, very, helpful. He's got a group not that far from me that play, and they also play a bit of Legion, so I might go and play a short game of Spec Ops with them or something. But this is the interesting thing. He said, because my name at the moment is Kathy Millett Modelling, he said, oh, I wouldn't let them know you're a woman because you'll put loads of people off on Kickstarter. You're better to just have a name that is just new. So I've been thinking about what to do for my name for Kickstarter because, and this triggered off that question, I want something and I was struggling. I was really struggling. I'd need to get a website for it. And the one thing I did use back in the day was the Traveller. I did Severna Spaceport. So I wondered about doing Severna or something like that. And people have mixed responses. Some people are like, oh, that's good. Other people are like, So the spaceport that I'll do is my second Kickstarter. I've already started doing some buildings for it. Would be Severna Prime. And then I'm going through making up names. And it will be a star system I do, the Severna star system. And everything will be on different planets. But there's a lava planet, an ice moon, a forest moon, a desert moon. You know, every single type of thing that you want, there'll be a moon for it. There's a gas giant if I want to do a floating cloud city like Bespin as an example. There may be an ocean one if I want to do a Topoka city from Camino, which is Star Wars prequels if nobody knows that reference. You know, it's one of those things. So I have a backstory and it's going to be around Severna star system. But what do people think? Obviously I have an audience with Kathy Millett Modelling that I can point towards people, but if my name's not on it when they get to Kickstarter, will that be confusing? Will I put off the people who are actually going to buy it, which, to be fair, probably aren't my YouTube audience. It's probably going to be bought by people who are into wargaming and tabletop gaming, specifically sci-fi tabletop games, in which case it will be good to have people coming from YouTube as an audience, but I'll be building up an audience, sort of sales pipeline almost from people within the terrain world. And what do you think of Severna? You know, is it a good name? What do you think? Comments down below. So, Stephen, you don't need a backstory to validate them, but I find it useful to have a reason, a design reason when I design stuff. My backstory might be this is a lava planet or this is a cyber planet, or, you know, I need to understand what I'm designing for. And that's partly because I want to be able to do them themed. So each one's going to be themed. Sodor, for Thunderbird fans, a must-see is the end credits of the Puppet Series made movie, The Royal Marines Thunderbird March. I don't know that one, sorry. Dealing with officialdom takes time, so we're talking about Wales still on the Wonderland, which would be amazing if they can get that off. Funding being the hardest thing, as I know. Soda, I've made moving back screens for dioramas based on Sky and Clouds, basically like Rolling Roads, the Puppet series used turn 90 but layered with Cloud then Sky. I was wondering about that, and yeah, so that is one of the options I had, like a giant material kind of picture that goes round, just round and round and round. And presumably it's just a loop that you spin on two upright sprockets. 2 drum rolls, thank you Norm, that's what constantly rolling through. I think so. One of the problems is the Thunderbird 3 one is diagonal when it rolls. Not quite sure how that would work. I'll have to have a look. No, that is normally right, that is what they did on the show. So Stephen, for the clouds, how about painting them on an acetate sheet and having them moving in the foreground? I wondered that. I actually think you could just, because it is a Thunderbirds and you're a little bit twee, I do think perhaps you could have them on something that's matte, because acetate sheet will reflect the light. That's my only worry. Andrew, maybe you have to do like the original, have different scales for different things. The TB2 pod selection thingy could be a smaller scale to show the whole thing. That's true, but all the kits I have are 1:350, so everything that's in the main arena stuff will be 1:350, but it may get smaller for the rest of the island as I do the foam work for that. Timbersurf, green scene and add the clouds to background. I could, but then it's not integral in the diorama, and I want to be able to sell the dioramas on. I'm doing these ones to sell very clearly in my head for room reasons. And check out Bob Ross, says Peter. Yep, Bob Ross is magic. I've never actually watched a Bob Ross. I've just heard so much about him. And then, Halka Mahuli is going to bed. I'm not surprised, you're an hour ahead of us at least. So good night. Soda, I've run and set up a railway society of standard gauge, but left when the policies took over and the lies of politics. It's probably why I don't do railways as much now. So Stephen says, and this is a fascinating fact, Kathy, your name is a benchmark for quality modelling. Gender should not be an issue. But gender is an issue. When you talk to, so we were on the Discord and Digger was on there having this conversation with us. And Digger's going, I don't think it's a problem. I don't think there's much sexism. Every single woman, and there were 3 of us on there, went, sexism is a real issue. It's a real issue. It does make a difference. One of the women was going, I was told never to put this is somebody who's on this chat, I was told never to put my name on, not to show my voice, not to let people know I'm a woman or I won't succeed. And that is the advice from a head social media person for a company that does this for a living. I think that's fascinating when the advice to women is you can't be a woman in the modelling world, in the gaming world. You just can't. It's not feasible. And I think that's fascinating. Is it? And people probably, I mean, I've only had a few people be really sexist with me. And to be honest, they were grumpy old men who were difficult with everybody. So I put that down to them being grumpy old men. There was sexism, but they were grumpy old men. So they were going to be difficult in a different way with a man than with a woman. But they were still difficult with everyone. So it's an interesting one because it is a reality. I try just to ignore it mostly. And I'm very lucky. I've not had that much pornography sent to me. I've not had that many comments. When people comment on your hair or your smile, I'm a bit like, but I want you to be commenting my modelling, not me. And I rarely put myself up there because I just get comments that make me go, but I'm not putting that up to get comments about me. That's not what I'm on Instagram for, Facebook. I'm putting it up because I want you to like my modelling. I want to be held, respected for my modelling, not for the fact I've got curly, long hair. So it's a real issue that sometimes you're just not quite hard to deal with. Matty Rex sounds like a good name. That's Saverna. RTC suggests initials. I've already got KMM as kind of a logo. Oh, it's an interesting one. Matty Rex says Saverna or Caverna. It's not a soft C, it's an S. Saverna. Digger. So Digger's seen there's a channel on my Discord that's called Saverna. Kathy, Mark, I actually art directed a gaming site that is a universe made up of planets that are all different. Lava Planet, Gems Planet, Jungle Planet. Very cool. Oh, I love it. Gems Planet. That sounds fun as well. Saverna sounds cool to me, so that's good. So, hi, I just joined. Are you wanting to build a miniature? Yes, I'm going to build loads of miniatures. It's what I build. So I'm building a miniature Tracy Island for this stream. We just diverted off into what I'm actually spending all my time trying to make money with. So Mark says, I agree. Kathy, you've made a good name for yourself. Why change it? And Tim says the same. I should still say who I am. A good name tells what you do commercially. Savannah a bit close to Taverna? Savannah? I don't know. One of the reasons I picked Savannah was when you Google it, nothing comes up at the moment. So that's interesting. So Timber's definitely going for his Airfix girder bridge. Yep. Diorama's by KM. Yeah, it is. Savannah ends in an A, so a female name. Someone else said that actually. They said if it's, if it's Savannah, it's quite feminine anyway. If I wanted to be masculine, it should be Savernus. So that's true. Is that really an issue on Kickstarter? It's not about Kickstarter. It's about the audience buying it. Will fewer people buy it because I'm a woman? And it's easy to blame sexism. My channel hasn't grown as much as I would have liked. Is that sexism, or is it just it's not a very good channel? I would just go, it's not a very good channel, and move on. Other people would say it's sexism because that puts it on someone else. So it's interesting. Tim says sexism is a real issue, but if you don't make yourself visible, nothing will change. That's true, but I also need to make money. And that is the question. I personally am all over my YouTube with a voice, and you can tell I'm a woman. So Adam says, I've never come across that in the gaming world. Most I've met, female, male, have always had respect for each other. Must just have been lucky. It's an interesting one because it's just interesting. Millard modelling. Well, my name's Millet, but yeah. Millet modelling. I mean, at the moment it's Kathy Millet modelling. And what I might do is just have everything with Saverna as a big brand name. I don't know. I'm still up in the air, you can tell, which is why I'm talking about it. Peter Jackson says, Saverna sounds good for a commercial name for me. And this is another thing. When I started YouTube, it was such a long time ago, everybody used their names. Luke Towan would be an example, Kathy Millet Modelling. Now, when you look on these names, they might say who they're by, but they always have a sort of a studio name, like Saverna or Wildwood or Wormwood or whatever it was, Mammoth Factory. Nobody uses their own names anymore. They use a commercial name. And I think part of me is going, if I'm setting up a commercial business to model 3D print STLs, should I not have a more commercial sounding name? So Andrew says there are a lot of female modelers on YouTube. I think that is a sexist thing to say. I think it's interesting. Are there I don't know any scale modelers who are women who have got really successful YouTube channels. I can think of people in the fantasy arena, like Nerdforge, but I struggle to think of anyone who are really big, successful channels. We're talking like 500,000, 1 million for a successful channel. So I'm not sure. I look at miniature painting, all the big channels are men. I look at gaming, all the big channels are men, because it's a predominantly male hobby. So is it that there just aren't as many women? I don't know. Cosplay, plenty of women, different hobby. And that's what I worry. There's definitely a load of YouTube people that do modelling, but is it in the area of modelling I do? Ratty Rex says, Wargaming and Warhammer has rampant sexism in it. It's shocking the online discussion forums are rife with sexist trolls. I can believe that. And that's what, and this guy was coming out of Warhammer when he said it. Oh, don't. I've tried making anagrams for my name stating the obvious and I've never come up with anything good. So who are Bad Squiddo Games? Anyway, Kathy, maybe the name you're searching for the Kickstarter could be simple, like Warlands, Warscapes, or similar. Saverna doesn't have a meaning for most. No, and I think that's it. Most of the names don't have much of a meaning. You know, people I follow, a lot of them are very skulls and design, and I'm struggling with it, and I haven't decided yet. So Adam says, I would say don't hide behind a fake name. It's not a fake name, it's a commercial name. Let's be clear on this. If you go and look down all the Kickstarters, nobody has their own name on it. They might have their own name as a this is by so-and-so, but it's always Corvus Game Terrain or Mammoth Factory Games or Darkfire Design is one I have a Patreon for. Great guys. You know, Skullforge, Squamous Miniatures. None of them use their own names. It's really rare to see anyone have their name as a company name now. Really, really rare. So I'm actually unusual to have my name as a company name. Andrew, love your work, Kathy, but joined the stream to watch about Tracy Island. Am I on the wrong page? No, sorry, Andrew. I asked a random question because someone triggered a question about 10 minutes ago. And I've spent an hour talking about Tracy Island already. So we're on a bit of a break as I talk about something else. So Stephen, it's not just modelling female pilots on YouTube, get personal comments, marriage proposals, some men need to grow up. KM modelling, that's an interesting one, and I could definitely just shorten it to KM modelling. They, them modelling, no, I'm definitely a girl. So KM modelling, terrain makers. The trouble is, all the ones like terrain makers and warscapes and warlands, they've all been used. They're all there. Ratty, no one uses their real name online. Right, Lila Mev, the Mini Watch 94K, the Mini Witch on YouTube. I'm banking on others, but I know I watch a few. It's interesting because I just don't see many female ones come up on my stream ever. But that doesn't mean they're not there. Other worlds modelling. How about a Planet World models for a name? My diorama. Anyway, just so that I can talk a bit more about Thunderbirds, which is obviously what some people are expecting me to be talking about. So, hi Joseph Miguel from Chile. Nice to have you here. Thunderbirds. So at the moment, let's just explain where I've got to. I am busy going very slowly through modelling of some of the things that I've got going through my channel. And I'm trying to do a video every couple of weeks in afternoons only. And I've got some backlogs I need to edit out now, and I've still got to finish up some, and I'm splitting things down into smaller dioramas. But what I will be doing is the dioramas, I'll probably make things up, and I'll make quite a few of them up, and then the dioramas will come later. And the reason for that is I can plan it all in Blender. I know exactly the sizes, but until I've built it, I could be off by millimeters, and I then have to decide how I make these into modular dioramas. So I definitely have a number of projects, which actually are more than a year. So I'd like to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 dioramas just on the vehicles. I'd like to have the Thunderbird 2 hangar. I don't necessarily need to do the containers to the side or the vehicle bay, though I do have the vehicles for the bay, and it's quite a simple one to model. They could just be behind rockwork. I want to do the TB3 launch and the TB1 launch, and then because of those three things that I want to do, I need to then have the roundhouse, which I've designed, Tracy Villa, which I still need to design with the swimming pool, and then there's a cliff house with a door that goes on the front of the TB2 hangar. Then there's the launch pad and the palm trees to work out. So there's actually quite a lot to do. Definitely quite a lot to do. And I need to really understand, how I'm going to fit it all in time, design-wise, and getting the dioramas done. So the first one that I decided to do was the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 dioramas, and to build all the vehicles. And then I thought, but if I want to animate Thunderbird 2, 3 and 1 to actually launch, I'll need to perhaps make them with internal gubbins. So, question for you all, how important is it to have animation in this diorama? How important is it that Thunderbird 1 launches, that Thunderbird 3 launches, that Thunderbird 2 has the moving conveyors? It then has to go down, but it can't physically go down because the conveyors are too close to each other. And then it has to come out, go along a track. The palm trees have to go up and down, and there's doors opening and closing as well on all of these. And then it goes to a launch pad, which then tilts up and it rolls back a bit in reality. So whatever method you have of moving it, it's going to run downhill on the launch pad. And then how would I launch that? It's launching at about a 30, 45 degree angle. It's 30 degrees. How do you then launch that? Is that all just a bit too far? But people got very excited when I said I was animating. So obviously there's a huge appetite to see the animations. I looked at, there was a Japanese, D'Agostino actually, I think it was, maybe, did Thunderbirds, they're still going, the Thunderbirds Tracy Island cutaway in a slightly smaller scale. And they had moving parts for the Thunderbird 1, where it kind of comes down a slope and then flat across. It was so complex. And I was looking at it thinking, that is months of design work and tinkering. And if I'm spending months design work and tinkering it, I'm not earning any money with that. So it was a very interesting where I've suddenly realised that I've just become far too monetary about it, but I need to earn money this year. And I can't sell any of this because it's copyright. It's Thunderbird, it's not my own designs. So whilst I might be able to reuse some of the roundhouse elements, they're based on an existing design. So I can't really use them. It just all becomes very, very difficult. And I'm still trying to balance that out on how much animation do I have to put in there. So Eichwolf says, one person company, not strange, use own name. Company with a lot of staff would be easier to have an other name. I don't have any staff and I'm not making enough money, but hopefully one day I could. Oh, Polite says he just found a company, Saverna, for precision machine plastic components. Interesting. Icewolf, will it be playable for a game and what scale will it be? Is this my terrain Kickstarter? yeah, it'll be 28 to 35 mil. I play 35 mil, which is 1 to 48. Realistically, a lot of what I'm doing at the moment is going to be a bit large for 28. Yeah, I don't know. The doors are the big thing, so I might just do small, medium doors, because sci-fi is often large and overwhelming scale-wise, but it's mostly done on a 3-inch grid, so it's about the right sort of size for all of them. Right, taking the KM modelling idea, what about something like KM models, sort of make the KM into Word? That's interesting. Adam, female YouTube dioramas, Deceit of Woman, 1.83 million. I don't know what Deceit of Woman, is that the name of it? 1.83 million subs. I've never even heard of them. I look at top diorama modelers, and I haven't been on YouTube for a while, to be honest. So Norm asked, which module would I start with? If I'm going to animate them, I'll give you a different answer to that. Because 2 is the hardest to animate, and 3 is the one I'm most advanced on. I was actually thinking of doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ones first, because they're all very similar once I've got the concept there, and it would just get me used to building all of the various different models. But then I was like, I'd actually rather build all the models together so I can just use the same paint at the same time. So probably 3 at the moment, just because it's at the end. So Ice Wolf, easy to do with some stepper motors and lights, always helps. Cool, yeah, lights are definitely going to be in here. Soda, very important to have animation. The launches were always about the animation of launching, plus we learnt more about animation on the T-series that happened. Yeah, that's true. Tim, it would be nice to have some animation, but it's also going to be difficult to achieve. You could spend many years trying to make that lot work, and that is my worry. And it may be I have to talk through with you the animation, because I'm struggling to work out how to even do. I'm struggling to work out how to make a Thunderbird module in one set, because they didn't do it in one set, bear in mind, have a moving conveyor belt, drop onto a conveyor belt, and then run forward. They didn't have that. They had it in different dioramas. So I could have it that I have an interior diorama, and that has the rock work go over it, and then I have the exterior scene sort of with that running on, hiding the one on the inside. I could do that. And that is maybe then have 2 I've got enough to do 2 Thunderbirds modules, things. So I could do 2 Thunderbirds just coming along. So there's definitely ways around it, but that too just blows my mind on some of the animation. And as I was saying earlier, the little sofa, it's about 1 centimetre long in this scale. You know, people at 1 to 350 are a couple of mil high. They're not big. Nothing is big. You have to bear that in mind because the vehicles are so large. It's just, I mean, they're not a couple of mil, they're a bit bigger than that. But, you know, it's, yeah, it's interesting. So Ratty Wretch, maybe just launches by making smoke and moves up 2 or 3 inches, TB1 and 3, and TB2 just goes onto the ramp and angles up. Yeah, I think in the smoke might be okay. I'm thinking of using water vapour for smoke because it's quite easy. But when you model then, you have to model assuming that you have no white glue in it because the white glue would, and everything has to be done with lacquer paints, not acrylics, I'm guessing, which is probably what I would use anyway for a lot of it. But you have to make sure that it can withstand the water vapour condensing, which it would. Gary McAvoy, all I can say is good luck with doing what you're trying to do. Thank you. I think I need it. But I like the idea. Norm says the same thing. I need to animate to the point of launch on each ship. Yep. Ratty Rex, smoke using your awesome smoke machine? I could do, but it doesn't put out a lot of volume, and the big one I have puts out too much volume, whereas the water vapour is actually easier to control. So, David, you could use Magna Rail to move TB2 right up to the launch pad. I could, but the problem with that is Magna, and this is what you see, I've been thinking about this a lot. Magna Rail goes under the surface. I have to break the surface to put the landing pad up. I have to break the surface for the wall door because that goes down into the ground. So I would therefore have 2 things that go through the Magna Rail run. how do I deal with those? And that's what I can't get my head around about using Magna Rail. So what I would have said is Fallow car system is a better way, because you could just put magnet wire in, bury it, and it will run up to an electromagnet. And I had all the Fallow car system stuff, but I got rid of it. So it would cost me £150 to buy a mechanism now in HO, which is slightly too narrow. So I'd be paying £150 for it. I haven't got £150 to pay on this diorama at the moment. So, yeah, there we go. I don't know. So lights and steam for action features, stating the obvious. That's good. I think Thunderbird 2 I would like to move out somehow if I could. Sodor, send an email to Jamie Anderson explaining what you want to do and ask the questions needed about copyright. Worst case they can say is no. Best you could say you have permission granted to you. I can build models that are sold models and build a diorama. That's not a problem. I'm using their products. I'm not building anything from scratch that's copyrighted, really. I mean, I'm going to do a Tracy Villa and a whatever, but they don't do models of those. So I don't think that's an issue. So yeah. But I mean, yeah. Adam Calvin, Nerdforge 2.87 million. I mentioned Nerdforge, but she doesn't do sci-fi modelling. She doesn't do Star Wars modelling. She doesn't do Warhammer. All of which are very sexist sort of enclaves. But as a whole, I don't think Star Wars or Warhammer, the people I've met have never been sexist. But they have reputations. I'm not sure Star Wars... Yeah, Star Wars does deserve it for the way it sometimes rag on some of the female actresses, or actors as they are now. But Nerdforge does fantasy and does a cosplay and does a lot of painting of fantasy scenes, which is very aimed at women. You know, she does a right mix of stuff. And I do follow Nerdforge. And someone pointed them out and says there's someone who does a huge mix of things and is a woman. So, and I followed them for that reason. And they were like 300,000-400,000 when I started following them for subs. So they've really shot up. But she's not in the same market I'm in. And that's a fascinating thing. So Mark, I think given the kind of action we see in the Thunderbirds TV show, you'll need some level of animation. However, even simplified versions of these animations would bring it to life. I think you're right, and I've struggled a bit, and I need to perhaps simplify. Might be the message I need to take for that. It's an acknowledgement at the movement really. The tilting palm trees would reveal the vehicles before it shoots off. The pool could move while the rocket appearing, but not actually blasting off. Well, I could actually make you can just use a rack and pinion almost to move a pole up so that it would breach the surface enough that it would look like it was coming out. And then if I've got the 54321 dioramas, I could then cut in the video to it flying, you know. It creates anticipation, says Martin, that's true. Ptolemy, sorry, I've just mentioned Nerdforge, yeah. But again, still not doing what I do. So it's an interesting one. Not in the Warhammer community, not in Star Wars. Fantasy has a huge amount of women in it. And fantasy cosplays have a huge amount of women. In fact, if I look at cosplay, generally they have a lot of women in them. And she's done some cosplay and stuff. Andrew, launching is going to be the most difficult thing, but TB2 animating the pods and moving towards launch should be achievable without having to use wires. I think you might be right there. Clayman and Dana Howell, I'm ashamed I don't remember her. I loved her channel. Awesome painting advice. See, I'm not the one that's saying. People are advising me to change my name. And that is what I'm struggling with. Yeah. Templefield, depends how Jerry Anderson animated. It would be authentic to keep finishing line and use your hands. You can see the finishing line on the roundhouse photo. And I could well do that. It's actually easier to do a plunger from below because I don't have anything above because they had gantries and I don't. So a plunger from below may be an issue. But yeah, fishing line might be a good guidance. But then I'd have to put a whole gantry above it, which is really big for a diorama of Tracy Island. So Mark, point is making it too complex. Simplifying animations would be the way to go. I go complex every time. It takes forever to plan and design, but this is not my main earnings. I know, and that's what I've been struggling with and why this is a design thread as I chat to you guys about what is actually achievable for Tracy Island that has all of the concepts that you want there, yet none of the issues that I have. And it maybe I only do a sort of the 1 to 350, and then the rest of Tracy Island looks quite stuntedly small. Right. Thunder, duck, duck, says Peter. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Peter Jackson, will you be doing TB5 separately, the space station? Yeah, I'm going to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'll do a 5, a 4, because it's actually 1 to 48 or something, instead of 1 to 350, the 4. And then I may as well do the 3, 2, 1 with the moving clouds, each of those. So I've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'll have all of them. And they won't be the launch ones, they'll just be the moving ones. Stephen says he's often thought of motorising a die-cast Fab 1 using the Fowler components if they're available as spares. Yeah, Stephen, you're looking at £100 to get a chassis, so that's why I've not done it. So Lady Pennantly worked for Mary Kay Cosmetics, riding around in that pink rolls. Maybe. I think she was a bit older. The launch pad is easy, the door a bit harder. For the... oh, right, back to the Magna Rail one. Yeah, no, I get that. The door is definitely the one that bends my noodle. Jamie Anderson doesn't have the copyright, ITV does. I think that might actually be true. Just join the fight. Are you mind doing the Blue Peter version? No, Thomas, because, and there's a reason for this. It's a really good question. I'm not doing the Blue Peter version because I am far too old to have seen the Blue Peter version. I don't think I've even seen it except in images. It's not a memory from my childhood. I'm actually doing it based on the Tracy Island you see in the original series, of which is flying past on the thing. And it's not there's anything wrong with the Blue Peter one, I just don't remember it. I couldn't even tell you what it looked like until someone put a GIF up earlier on my Instagram or Facebook probably, showing a picture of it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. Just not something that's in my universe. Mark, could you use submerged railway tracks for removing things? I did wonder. I've got this car that runs on a black line and it just follows the black line. I did wonder about just putting a black line down the middle, because the car's about the right width and it's battery and you charge it, and just putting that into the container and just having it run on a black line. Could be an interesting one. It's only got to go forward and stop. So Sodor says, I recently found a channel called Lily Scenics. Great tips and makes stop motion videos, puppets and set and model. Oh, that's interesting. I can guess that's the woman for you mentioning it. So Andrew, I'm a HO model on a German YouTube... Oh, sorry. I saw a HO model on a German YouTube channel where a boat entered a lock, the lock descended and the boat departed. I think the boat had an HO radio-controlled car built into it. That sounds awesome. I would love to have done that. When I was modelling the UK, and we had a canal boat when I was a child. I grew up on canal boats for holidays, probably 7 or 8 weeks a year on one. So I've always wanted to do a moving lock, but I just never quite worked out the best way to do it. David, at the door, you have a track behind and a track in front of the door. You don't have to use magna rail, just use magnet on a chain conveyor system. Actually, that's a point. It just need to worry about the curve and it picking it up and not jerking it, because obviously you need to end in a round. But yeah, I need to think about it. I may just use this induction car and put a giant black line down. We'll see. I need to do some testing. For the electronics, go for Arduino. Lots of great tutorials on YouTube for controlling stepper motors that are really cheap and available in small sizes. I have loads of Arduinos, and I've done like 2 Arduino projects really, but I've got loads of Arduinos I bought ages ago. So I'm probably unlikely to use Arduino because it won't cost me anything, because I already have the pieces. And I have loads of stepper motors and Arduinos I bought for doing Port de Norwick before I went, I'm just going to use a rod and a slight micro switch instead. So yeah, I did change, and so I've got enough stepper motors to do everything. So that's definitely going to be what I do, I think. Definitely. Peter, if you want to make money, go for the market of tabletop gaming, work in modular landscapes. People can buy modules that fit together based on a number of players in the group. Peter, you missed the bit in my stream where I said I'm doing Kickstarters of modular terrain for Kickstarter for wargaming. So yes, I am. The first one I'm going to do a modular... I'm going to be doing... landscapes in future ones, but someone gave me the very good advice of make your first Kickstarter really small so you get the practice in before you do a really big one. So I'm going to be doing a modular set of landing pads. It's probably about 10 or 12 different landing pads that you can put together, which can fit into so many different games, because I'm doing sci-fi games. Ice Wolf, unused belt system like a 3D printer, also cheap and easy to get. I do have my old 3D printer, and I use the belt system on the Saverna Traveller spaceport that I did, And so I probably have some bits floating around. I was looking at them because I was trying to work out how to get some of the things to work. Like, how do I get Thunderbird 2 to go up or down? That's actually quite hard because you have to get all 4 legs to go up and down evenly. And so I think I might just have the conveyors moving and then stop it at that. Not even have it come down at all, because it was the legs are so small. They're only a 2-3 mil wide, and there's 3 sections. To get them to come down looking good in 1 to 350, because the studio scale models are, 4 or 5 foot long at least, and you're talking about something that's 4 or 5 inches long. Just getting the animation in the size is the problem. I looked at it and then I opened one of the boxes and I was just like, the animation isn't going to work in this size well. So Norm, am I going to use Kickstarter? So yes, but I need to talk to My Mini Factory, because I'll probably also then put it on My Mini Factory afterwards, because both of them have really good terrain 3D print markets, but they're slightly different. And My Mini Factory do a really good pledge, but they're £25 a month, so I haven't spoken to them yet, because I just can't afford £25 a month till I have stuff to sell. Peter Jackson, maybe use the DC Concepts metal plates under the runway, as they can be separated, though not sure magnets would move. Not sure the magnets would move TB2 though. So I have some metal plates. I have some of those. I bought again for Port Dinoric and didn't use because I got rid of all the grades when I redid it. Sodor, one thing I do love about the CGI Thunderbird is the actor who voiced Parker in the Puppet series did it for the CGI. I love Parker. He's probably my favourite character. Though if I was going to have a crush on one of the brothers, it'd be Virgil, because he's just so chill and laid back. And he flies Thunderbird too! What's not to love? It is my favourite. I am a fan, James, of the animated Thunderbirds of Go remake. I love animated series. My favourite Star Wars series is the Clone Wars. I really like some of the Gundam. I really love animated series. So the fact that it's animated doesn't bother me. And I like the people in it a lot better. So I am much more of a fan of Thunderbirds of Go than the originals, sad to say, having just rewatched both. David Orff, TB2, you can raise it up on its legs above the conveyor belt, but if the legs are coming up through the baseboard. Yeah, I was just struggling because you'd have to do all 4 legs evenly to come through the baseboard. And I was just thinking that actually that means I need to have something really flat and evenly raised, which would involve having maybe 2 lead screws. And then I'm like, this has just got really complex. And actually, do I need to? I'll probably have the moving conveyors, and then it can't really come down that far before it hits those containers anyway. So I might just not have it move at all. We'll see. So Clay is going back to the name. How about K Millet models, so that anyone that knows you knows your reputation, anyone that doesn't see gender? And that's probably what I was wondering about. The star system is going to be called Severna Star System. So Severna Prime is the name of the spaceport. I mean, every planet has a different name. I wander around the park at lunchtime going, Vesima Kadani, Jannar, Obrix or Corix? Corix. I'm on that kind of vibe at the moment. I did myself a little star chart of the planetary system with all the planets in like a sort of, in a line art style, with only the one planet that I've currently got anything on coloured in. And as I use them, I'm going to thumb up the names and colour in the planets. So there's going to be a lava planet, probably a lava moon. If you've played Battlefront 2, I'd like to do a lava factory like on Sullust, that level, which is really cool. So I've got loads of ideas for Kickstarters, and I'm learning a lot about how to design for FDM printing at the moment to make sure everything's printable, just without wasting too much time. So I'm learning a lot about that. And I've got a lot of base tiles, circular and square for landing pads. So I'm certainly learning a lot about it. And then I've got to learn the whole Kickstarter experience as well. Hi Andy, hi Josephie Krakowski. Mark, Stephen Cameron, I'm using a Firecraft system kit on my layout and used the bus that came and set as a donor to make Bertie the bus move. Not so easy as turning radius on Fowler is not the same. I've got to say, the reason I sold my Fowler was I could never get it to work properly, and I found it a real distraction from the railway. So I got rid of it to stop myself playing with it anymore. Daniel says, I saw a model railroad on a narrowboat on a YouTube channel the other week. Wow, that's impressive. There's not a lot of space on a narrowboat. They call them narrowboat for a reason. Giuseppe, what if the Thunderbirds were evil? Well, I thought Scott could get his strop on quite often. He certainly could give people the evil glare if they didn't let him set up his mobile command centre. Ptolemy, a series of cams from one motor should cover lateral and vertical movement. Yeah, but the last time I tried to design gears, which was for my bridge on Port de Norwich, I just really struggled to get them to go smoothly. So I'm trying to go simple. I am an overcomplicator of models. I really am. I'm just really good at overcomplicating. And what I do notice is they had different sets for each of the movements. So the launch sequence probably had 3 or 4 different sets because they didn't try and solve it all in one go. So for me to try and solve all of those problems in one diorama has been one of the reasons I was originally thinking of splitting it into multiple dioramas and doing it like a comic strip. So I could do each of the sections of the launch like a comic strip going across. Thunderbird 2 does this, in this one it does this, in this one it does this, in this one it does that. You know, all the movements. But it was just, let's go big again. It was just an awful lot of dioramas, and it wasn't Tracy Island. It was just a series of dioramas around the launches. So I kind of moved away from that, from doing Tracy Island as an island. So Timber says, I have cracked 4 legs on a car lift and a mono using one servo. Interesting. Kathy, have you thought about making a larger scale model of TB2 legs as they do in the series? Says Frank. Yes, that was that comic strip idea, that I could do each of the things and I could have the sliding down Virgil going down, I could have Scott and his movement. And in the end, I thought, Kathy, you're creating a lot of work for yourself at a time when you're trying to scale back the amount of time you spend modelling, and it's not going to be achievable. And people on a live stream do not want to spend 5 years watching me build one set of modules on Thunderbird. And actually in future, I might actually want to do some of my Kickstarter design work to show what I've been doing on that and talk people through that as the next one, because that is what I'm going to be spending all my time on. So it becomes quite a natural thing to put on a live stream. So it might be I'm designing a spaceport and I talk about my spaceport. So I don't want Thunderbirds to run on for 5 years. Let's put it that way. So I think I'll do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I can have all the moving elements, 5 spins, and it comes with a motor. 4, 3, 2, and 1 will have moving backdrops. And that'll be that. And then everything else will be 1 to 350 because it's vehicles, and I will create maybe 7 or 8 modular dioramas that I could pull out and do close-ups of for video and then slot them together to get Tracy Island. I think that's where I am at the moment, but it's fluid till I start building. So Mark says, removing clouds 2 rows with fabric is tricky as they slightly unsync. I suggest a curtain joined together at the end, hung on some kind of rounded rectangle rail motorised to pull it round. That's an interesting concept. So you're only doing it at the top, you're not doing it at the bottom. Interesting. What you would have is a repeater. I was actually only going to motor one side. The other side was just going to be a round for it to go round. But yeah, that's interesting. For TB2, if it's going to have to be viewed from the view we all watch, have TB2 lower down, magnets in the legs, feet. TB2 lowers while the legs lower below the baseboard, then move TB2 forward. So one of the problems I have is getting the legs out and getting it wheeling. And part of me goes, because it's going to go on a video, I could just pick that model up and put another one in its place. You know, once the conveyor belt's gone underneath, I could just replace the model with the one that moves. Would that be cheating? Would it? Would anyone notice if I didn't tell them? It's a thought. Soda says, have engaged track hidden at the level where the bottom of the pod and move forward. The runway level should be like a level crossing and have it as close as possible to hide the track. I could do that. It's still the containers. So if I want it to move and look good, it's all food for thought, isn't it? Stephen, an expression that fascinates me is studio scale. I think it depends on the size of your studio. If you have an aircraft hangar, the sky's the limit. Most of us only have a kitchen table. Studio scale for them is, I think they're puppets were like half scale or something, or quarters. I think they were half scale. They were massive, the puppets, when you look at them. And so the sets with any puppet was set around them. But the sets for exteriors and cars and vehicles were obviously a lot smaller. Right, random question from Adam. Completely random question. Do you know where you can buy medieval characters? Do you mean... Okay, so what kind of medieval characters? I go and look at My Mini Factory, or Thingiverse, or Printables, or CG Trader, or Thangs. Just go and have a look and type medieval figure, and you'll probably find one. You may have to scale it to your scale, but I scale all sorts of things. David, as an exam engineer, I have to say designing gears is not simple. That is very much my conclusion, David, having tried it. I really am going to buy gears next time because it's not simple. I haven't learned that from Port to Norwich. Norm, so now you have us all excited when we'll start building. Right, so at the moment I've got a DFD lat, Darkfire Designs Republic gunship from the Clone Wars sat on my workbench. I need to finish 3D printing huge amounts across the next couple of days to do the base for it, and I need to paint up a load of clones for it. So that's probably another week or so's work. I'll probably get a video up this week on Scale Modular paints tabletop minis for the first time. I'm planning to do some terrain videos, which are like scenery videos, doing a small base and a 3-inch square of terrain, showing off some real basics on how to do the simple stuff really easily for people. You know, how to do simple mud, how to do, you know, I can do 3 or 4 tiles on that, how to do simple. The first one will be Rishi Moon, which is Grey Rock Moon from Clone Wars. It's the Wookiees episode, if you're into that, where Captain Rex and Cody go and the Clankers have taken over. It's where you meet Fives and Heavy and Echo for the first time and Heavy for the last time. So a lot of the bases and terrain will be named for Star Wars stuff, which you can do on YouTube. You know, you can name it, you just can't show it. So building will start in the next month. Probably just starting by building the hangers up so that I have the actual size of things, so then I can start slotting them together. You will definitely see the pulling down palm trees, Andy. I've already got the palm trees. David, what I meant for the TP2 legs was basically an upside down table, the table part. Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking of doing if I did them. And keeping the table level, I think, was the hardest part. But actually, what I'm probably going to do is just not move it. I may just go with that. But yeah, that's the conclusion I'd come to, is I had to do that. And they have to then go through the floor. But once you've done that, you can't get them out of the model because you'll never get it lined up. You know, they're very small. So I may just not move them. I may just have the model sat there. The conveyors come up and then swap it for one that moves. Peter Enos, perhaps use a small solenoid, works with Arduino for the doors opening. I've got loads of servo controllers, so the doors will probably get opened with a servo just because I have them already. But yeah, same principle. Stephen Sodor says, Stephen, my office that I used to build in is 7x6. I have my 3D printer, flop making, dioramas and everything in here. I've just got a massive new workshop that I'll show in a live stream coming soon when it's finished. So Adam, thank you. I'm doing a forge at the moment, first diorama. Brilliant. And there's loads of websites out there that have figures for free, or you can buy them. I don't mind paying creators for them because I know how much work goes into them. People who do it as a hobby, you know, that's fine. You don't have to earn necessarily money. It's nice to have it. But a lot of these creators are relying on it for their money. And there's 1 or 2 who've been really supportive of me that I support and pay money to just to support them because they've been so supportive to me in other ways. So like Darkfire Designs sent me huge number of designs for free with a, we just love what you do. Here's some designs. If you want to use them personally and never do anything on YouTube, that's fine. We just want to say thank you very much for what you do. I'm now their patron because they were just so generous. And I think that really shows. David, the old dinky metal TB2 had a pair of rollers in the base of the dropout container. This one has a pair of rollers in the base. This kit here has a pair of rollers in the base as well. Alan, if you change models to a different shot, it isn't cheating. If it's a video, it's fine to do. But if it's a piece of automata, then you need to use the same model. It's your choice. Well, I think it's an interesting one because for me, the main medium it gets seen is video. And I don't think it's physically possible to do all of that in this scale in one go. I've thought so much about it, and there's things crossing. The conveyor belt would be crossing the wheels for the Thunderbird and the lift mechanism. There's just so many things that are going right, back, up, down across all of the movements for TB2. It actually makes it incredibly hard to make it move and work. And the tolerances will be microns to get everything to line up. It's just going to be so hard. Thunderbirds are go, Mises Workshop. They are definitely go. Yeah, sorry, David. I knew you got dinky. Hi, Moose. Stephen, was the palm trees diorama practice for Tracy Island? No, I'd actually bought the palm trees already, or actually WWS gave them me for free for Tracy Island. I just wanted to see if I could 3D print a tree, because I've always wanted to 3D print a tree. They're actually in Legion scale, and I now play Legion, and I want to do a Legion board. So they're probably just going to go on my Legion board as area terrain when I do that. I've now played 4 games of Legion. My last game started at 12 and we kind of left the shop when it shut at 6. It's not a quick game, but it gets me out of modelling all weekend. Peter says, use magnets integrated to the sides of the modular dioramas to click them together, perhaps with pegs for alignment. Definitely going to be magnets. And I might 3D print those areas so I know they line up exactly. And then use foam to make the rot work on the bits in between. So you might see a few lines. But I think that's part of the charm of a cutaway Tracy Island. You know you can pull out a piece if it's got lines on it. But definitely I think it's a great idea. On the dinky models, Peter Jackson says, from the 60s and 70s, TB2 legs folded underneath and the rollers were under the pod when it moved. Not sure if that helps. Well, the models just have solid legs that are moulded with the 3 sections, is it? And you either glue them in or you don't. They just come with legs, and it's your choice whether you have them with the legs or the wheel version. But they're glued. Do you need a powerful Mac PC to use these modelling programs? It depends how much you're doing, not for what I do. I split my stuff down into... I use Blender for modelling, and I split my stuff down into smaller subsections. It's when you want to render. So rendering out my star system, which was all line arted over the top of quite heavy, dense meshes for the planets to get them circular, did cause everything to go off, because I was also using Final Cut Pro to merge camera angles for my videos. Plus I was also had Lightroom or Photoshop open at the same time, and Final Cut Pro was then trying to render out, and rendering takes a huge amount. So if you use 2 at the same time, it will just slow your Mac PC down a lot, but no, generally not. Of course you can get the legs to line up. I'm just put a tiny magnet on the top of each leg and a matching one buried in TB2. That's true, that's a good point. Ice Wolf, do I have FDM print or resin? Yes, I have 7 printers, 3 FDM, 4 resin. I don't use one of the resin because I've got them upgraded. I had an original Elegoo Mars, and I've got a Mars 3 now, which is mono and newer, which they gave me. But my filaments are running 24/7 at the moment. Like literally I'm going through roll after roll, doing some test prints for landing pads. I'm actually gonna, when I finish them, I might give some of them to the local shop to use and stuff like that, just to play test for a bit. But I've got a lot of landing pads, and then I'm also printing a Ferrix board, which was a Kickstarter Ord Ferrum, which if you watch Andor, it was Ferrix, which isn't really the period I model, but they're just really neat designs, and I thought I'd print a whole Kickstarter to see what it was like, what other people are offering. And then I'm also about to start printing some more. I have to do some Thunderbird stuff, and I'm about to start printing a Captain Rex helmet, real size, full scale, because he's my hero. Yeah, Peter, don't worry, people repeat all the time in chat. David, of course you can get the legs to line up. Hello. So He-Man is back. I'm back. Hello there. Welcome back. So I've talked a lot about what I am going to do. So let's just sum up for all those people who came in late, or for all those people who are now trying to work out, because I'm having 5 conversations at the same time on chat. I'm going to be doing 5 dioramas of the individual vehicles. We've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the 5 vehicles. They are going to have, the 5 is going to rotate, and it comes with a motor. And it can have 3 docking, but I'll probably just have it on its own. 4 should be underwater, and I'll probably have it with some plants. It's only like blue with a few little plants coming up and maybe the odd fish. So I might use acetate. They're going to have magnet fronts that go on with the blown up number on it. So it will look 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as you put them across. And they'll be all the same size, so they look cohesive, but I need to build the... because 3's at an angle, I think, when it's going, and 1 and 2, which are smaller. 2's probably the biggest width one, but I need to see how big 5 is. So I'm probably going to build those and get those vehicles done. Then I need to build 3 hangars. I've got TB 1, 2 and 3 kits, so I'm going to build the 3 hangars. But before I can finally build the hangars, I need to make the modifications for animation. So I need to decide what I'm animating and how I'm animating things. So it could be, if I build a hangar and then decide to animate differently, I'm cutting up work that I've done. So I'll probably build them in the plastic stage and not paint them. And I may not fully assemble everything and see. And what happens with the hangars is quite often they're a back wall, a side wall and a base, but there's no roof. And there's no side on the other side. So I will need to add on extra walls and design those. I'll need to do a lighting gantry in the roof. And when I put Tracy Island in, there'll be something above the TB2 hangar. So you won't just be able to look in from above, but I'll make it removable that you can look in from above. So there's going to be loads of sections. And to make sure all these modules line up, they're going to be magneted with the ones at the bottom, very much at the front, and then behind them, I'm debating this. I mean, if I could afford it, I'd probably do laser cut MDF for it. But actually, because I'm really bad at, getting stuff lined up, and foam is too soft to do good solid connections, I'll probably end up 3D printing the connections and then putting sheet styrene over it. So I'll just do a sort of outer rim for connections. I won't 3D print everything because it would just take too much filament, and it will only be maybe 3-4 mil thick, and that'll be the facer. And then everything else will be arranged around it. And I'll do everything in sections for foam. So Tracy Island will be a frame around the outside and round the front with the coastline and a bit of ocean. Behind that, there will be 8 cutaway pieces. You can pull out the TB3 hanger and look into it. You can pull out the TB1 hanger and look into it. You can pull out the conveyor hanger and look into it. You can pull out the TB2 hanger and look into it. You can pull out the vehicles comes next, vehicle hanger and look into it. I'm not going to do the other gubbins just to limit what I do. But those ones have got movement in them, so I need to model them, because the conveyor starts in one, comes through the hanger and goes out to the other. So I'm going to have to model them to some extent and be able to access them, because they're going to have moving stuff in them. And I need to decide how those conveyors are moved. It may be just a conveyor belt is the simplest way, and then I've got to get a conveyor belt with tensioning to work, so I need to think how that's going to work. So there's a lot of different things I need to get on the animation before I can finish things. So the first thing I'm going to do is build the sort of concept, build all the stuff up to a certain level, so I know the sizing, I can start clicking it together. Tracy Island, different pictures have different spacing, different things in between. I'll shunt all the stuff that isn't going to be shown together, and it will just have foam rock work, but with 3D print sort of connection sides, so that with magnets, so that I can click them in and out. But the foam will make it light, otherwise it would just be too heavy. So that's it. That's kind of the plan. And because I'm going to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ones, I was tempted to do those first. But then if I want to animate them, I want to do the other vehicles at the same time. So, yeah, still a debate on the order I'm going to do things. But I think realistically, before anything else, the hangars will be mock assembled with the walls done. And I will just have to work out what animation I want. Because one of the problems with doing a sort of plunger stick coming up to launch stuff is it has to go that far below the ground, as far as I can tell. You don't have bent things coming up, you have a straight line. So if I want it to go up 2 or 3 inches, I've got to have 2 or 3 inches of depth, which isn't a problem because I've got a beach to do beneath it. But if I want it to go up all the way 12 inches into the ceiling, suddenly I've got to have 12 inches beneath it. And that may well be the limitation on how tall my launch sequence is how much space I actually want beneath the dioramas for like it not being too big. And what I've got, when I've got all these, I then need to start scaling everything out and making sure it fits. Whew, that's it. Right, David, technically the hangar for TB2 should have a turntable because I think it comes out front facing but goes in driving towards the door. It doesn't have a turntable, it just reverses it does a 3-point turn. That's what I thought anyway. I'm sure it does a 3-point turn. There is actually a return sequence somewhere and it does a 3-point turn somewhere. So Peter says, Andy, no problem for the recap. Could the launch be simulated with compressed air in tubes, integrating the legs of the model? Hiding the air tubes with smoke. That sounds more complicated than a plunger, to be honest. Because compressed air, they need to be guided somehow. I'll have a think, but it does sound more complex. Soda, off topic, but would you follow Simon Kohler and ever get a 3D version of yourself and have a genuine mini Cathy for your layouts, dioramas? I don't follow Simon Kohler. Oh, you mean, did he do this? I haven't watched any of the Hornby series except the one I was in. And get a 3D printed version of myself. I have like 3D printed versions of myself in every scale because I got myself scaled by done by Modular, and then they actually sell them as part of the Great Model Railway Challenge Judges series. So you can actually get me if you want anyway. So I already have one. I got them for when I was doing different scaling things. I was doing the mini Cathys, so I've never painted them, but I already have that, and I wouldn't put it on a layout with me in, but the mini Cathys was in all my early videos. Thanks, Monique. I will let you know when the Kickstarter hits. I really appreciate that. I'll need it. It's going to be quite cheap, the first one. It's not going to be an expensive one. It's going to be a gain experience one. Digger, mini Cathys available from Modular. There we go. Can you do a steampunk landing pad? I'd not thought about steampunk. It's a good idea. I'll have a look. What I don't really want to do is start doing grimdark for Warhammer. It's not my thing. Norm, pay attention. There'll be a test at the end. I have to remember it all. Yeah, right. Oh yeah, you can get anything on Modular. You can get it in any scale. You just need to ask them if it's a scale that isn't listed, and they'll do it for you in any scale. So maybe Space 1999 landing pads could be easier. So my inspiration at the moment is very much Star Wars, Halo, Titanfall, Mass Effect. Those are the big four. The Expanse as well, to some extent. I actually have a little dinky mole model, but the mole model that sells in this set from Bachmann that are doing AIP ones is massively different scale. So I haven't at the moment, but the TB2 comes with, one of the versions of TB2 comes with all the little ones. So I've got a very little mole. It's about that big, I think. They're not big. The vehicles are not big. Nothing is big in this. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't fit. But I remember having a Space 1999 Eagle, the one with the radiation canisters, when I was a kid. Yeah, Stephen's saying it could reverse taxi into the hangar for TB2. I'm sure there's a clip. I can't remember if it's the old or the Thunderbirds or Go newer one, but definitely. So Sodor says, dang, talk that much about Tracy Island and Thunderbird. I'm tempted to use this spare 6x4 hardboard picture frame backing and make a micro Tracy Island as seen in pictures shown. Go for it. If other people want to do Tracy Island, that would be so much fun to see what everybody does. That'd be really, really good. And if someone wants to do the Blue Peter version, if they wanted that, that'd be even better. Yeah, I think Ice Wolf, when making movies, camera angles is also important. That's why I'll make it all removable so that you can get the sides off. So what I might do is make the Thunderbird 2 hanger, actually the walls are attached to the other sections, or the walls are in between and magnet is on, so I can take them off to get the camera in if I need a different angle. For a conveyor belt, you have two options. You can use a slightly stretched belt stretched across rollers, or use a chain drive which requires no tensioning. I need to think about it, David, about what the best way is, because it literally just has to move a set of conveyors from left to right. They don't have to do much else. And I wondered whether I could do a 3D printed conveyor belt, but I'm not sure, like a chain drive one. So, okay, Peter says compressed air would eliminate the room needed under the model, but doesn't it need a guide channel then for it to go up? Or is it doesn't have that in the hanger models? They're literally, it goes up in the middle, and it's that guide thing that I'm struggling with. Jason, I miss the mini Cathys. I got so much hate for them, I just got fed up with the hate. Sodor, TB2 comes in facing the cliffs. As it fires its landing retros, it rotates 180, then it pushes itself backwards along the unit till it's locked back in position. That's interesting. I do remember there was a landing sequence once, but I can't remember the details. Yeah, I do have quite a few little mini TB4 models with all the stuff I have here. They are small. Right, so I've got to 10 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap this up. I will have some actual models, hopefully, for next time, even if it's just all together with masking tape and concept, so that I can talk about it. I won't make the mistake of ever using Thunderbird's footage again, and I'll go and delete out that early one. So thank you very much for everybody who made this live stream and found it. I'm sorry for the snafu at the beginning, but thank you guys for all of the good ideas. Nothing's locked down. I won't be doing the animated models next time. I'll probably be starting with the simpler ones. So if anybody has any great ideas, feel free to message me or comment down below. I read all the comments on my YouTube, unless it was Port de Noort, because suddenly I got like 5,000. But yeah, just do comment down below if you have any great ideas when you're watching this back later on how to animate things. I've a lot of things I've thought about and gone, oh, that won't work, because A, price is sometimes an issue. Like fallow is just too expensive. B, you know, I'm not sure how robust that will be. C, just, you know, all that kind of, will it look good? So, and will it fit in a small scale? So loads of ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.